machine. And here's how it works. Measure 118 would purport to raise a gigantic multi-billion-dollar amount of taxes on big corporations. Now, because they're the same big corporations that sell you virtually everything you need to get along, whether it's housing, whether it's food, whether it's energy, whether it's gasoline, that you are basically paying the money into the corporation. It gets taxed like crazy by Salem, and then Salem promises, we'll give you free money every single year, once a year. Every member of a family would get, the estimates are between, I don't know, $1,400 and $1,600. So a family of four might get a big fat check for $6,000, not realizing, I think, that the $6,000 actually already came out of their pockets as they bought everything they needed from the corporations who just got taxed, which is the reason it reminds me of a perpetual motion machine. Mattias Gugel joins me now. His name is not spelled like the search engine. He is Director of State External Affairs at the National Taxpayers Union. Mattias, welcome to the program. How are you, sir?
Thanks. I'm doing well. How are you, Lars?
I just wanted to say no relation to the evil Google, but this is the good Google, the one at NTU.
No.
So tell me what
different. Yeah,
completely. But tell me this: is my view of Measure 118 and my recommendation to Oregon voters, which I made last week, vote no on this thing. It's a giant scam, and it's just income redistribution and giving the state, in this case Salem, the chance to lay its hands on billions of dollars, and I'm sure they'll carve their cut out of that. Am I wrong?
Oh, not at all. I've been calling it a Trojan horse, really, is what it is they're coming in trying to give you a check saying, hey, here's this free money, but really, you're going to pay for it. Really, you're going to get this, like, sugar high of the, check that might come in, but everything's going to crash, and I think Oregon's economy is ultimately going to pay for it with its own sort of crash.
Well, and in fact, the state of Oregon just saw a major restaurant chain that just announced yesterday they're all going, Sherry's. Now, I've got no dog in the fight there other than I have had meals there from time to time, but I paid for them. But the restaurant business is notoriously thin when it comes to a profit margin. And what this thing would do is it would charge every single corporation above a certain amount. Is the bottom end $25 million? Is that the bottom end for them?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and you say, well, that's a lot of money. I say, well, I'm not sure. You don't have to get that big a business before it's generating a couple of $1 million a month, which would be $25 million. I'm sure it'll apply to, to a number of corporations that we all buy food or other things from, and they'll just pass the cost along to us. But even if the company has no profit, even if they're not making a profit, they still have to pay the 3% corporate tax rate. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. This is on gross receipts. So every dollar that comes in, regardless of if you're making a profit or not, would be taxed above that $25 million threshold. And I don't know about you, but honestly, I feel like when I'm paying my grocery bill these days, it could easily add up to $25 million.
Well, in fact, Mattias, I haven't looked, but how you wouldn't have to have much of a grocery chain before you were generating. That's only $500,000 in gross sales a week. And you say, well, how small does a grocery chain have to get before its total sales from all of its outlets is less than $500,000 a week? It's pretty small, isn't it?
Yeah, just think about like what your weekly grocery bill is itself. It's got to be a couple $100, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, I can't think it would take that many grocery bills to just add up to the $25 million.
So all they're going to do is the corporation will be charged 3%. It'll pass the charge along, especially in groceries, where I think the margin of the grocery business is like 2.5%. That's so I've heard from the people that I know in the business. And you say, okay, they just hit us for an amount of taxes bigger than our entire margin. We have to pass that cost along. So they pass it along. Everybody's grocery bill goes up by 3% at least. And yet at the end of the year, you get this $1,600 check for every member of your family. You say, wow, it's free money that came from nowhere. No, it came out of your pocket, except you didn't notice it.
Yeah, this is anything but fair. Middle and lower class Oregonians are really going to end up paying the price. You'll see your grocery bill go up, rent go up, school supplies go up, Halloween candy, whatever it might be. And what'll you have to show for it? Really, you'll have more government control, Salem in control of more of your tax dollars, and less of what really matters, which is freedom, innovation, opportunity in Oregon.
Now, who is pushing this idea, and what is their real agenda? Since, as I understand it, they're not from Oregon or Washington. They're from outside the region, and they're pushing it for some reason. What are they hoping to do?
Yeah, I think ultimately what they're trying to do is they're trying to increase that dependence on government, which is so sad. I am not entirely sure about who is behind this, but I know that it isn't people in Oregon who are ultimately going to pay the tab for this and need to vote no on Measure 118.
Now, I know somebody's going to probably compare this to Alaska. They have that permanent fund that's for people who are residents, but I think you have to live there for a couple of years. And you say, well, aren't they doing the same thing? I don't think they are, because Alaska charges the tax on all the oil that's produced in the state, almost all of which is not going to anybody in Alaska. It's going to everybody else. So they found a way to make some money, and they said, okay, every year a family will get a certain amount. It's usually a couple of grand per person. And I don't know if they use it to, put a new down payment on a car or house or whatever it is they're doing with it. But that's where you can actually be sure that most of the tax is going to be on goods that are not sold to people in Alaska. They're sold to people everywhere else in the world. But this is not that. And we've already seen one grocery receipts tax that wiped out a whole bunch of pharmacies. What do you think is going to happen when this one goes into effect? What are we going to see disappear?
Really, it puts Oregon at a serious disadvantage. Higher taxes are going to drive businesses away into other neighboring states. That's something Alaska doesn't really have. It's a lot harder to go to a neighboring state up there.
Russia.
But it's going to mean fewer it's going to mean fewer jobs for Oregonians, less opportunity for working families. And really, Oregon can't afford to push businesses out of the state right now.
No, and frankly, I think the region is tired of being the guinea pig. They saw what it was like to be the guinea pig on drug legalization, both Oregon and Washington, and they saw how many dead bodies it produced. And I imagine a family that's happy to get the $1,600 per person check, so maybe, $5, $6, $7 grand for a family, except that when dad or mom's job disappears with it, and they don't even realize why the job went away, they just know, yeah, we got a big check, and then dad's job disappeared. Not a good thing. That's Mattias Gugel. He's Director of External Affairs of the National Taxpayers Union, commenting on ballot measure 118 in Oregon. I've advised you, even though I don't vote in Oregon, vote no on this thing. It is a disaster. It's